My old friend and former colleague, Donald Duncan, and I used to have a little good-natured back and forth over the issue of liturgy and ceremony. Actually, I thought it was good-natured. I can't guarantee that Donald saw it the same way. Anyway, since Donald came to us from the Episcopal Church, where high liturgy is the norm, and where sumptuous paraments, sanctuary appointments, and clergy vestments are part of the tradition, there would be some inevitable friction about what is appropriate in a church like ours. I think we struck a pretty good balance, but the back and forth between us highlights one of the features of the Presbyterian ethos that I want to highlight today. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. In our Book of Order, the portion of our Constitution that guides us in our governance and worship, there is a brief statement about some of the things that inform Presbyterian faith and practice. It claims that one of the themes of our theology is a faithful stewardship that shuns ostentation and seeks proper use of the gifts of God's creation. There's actually a lot wrapped up in that one statement, but I want to focus on only that part about shunning ostentation. It applies to more than just our worship. It applies to our whole lives, both individually and as a community. Our old friend John Calvin, in a discussion of true piety, put it this way: "We ought to note this fact even more diligently. All men have a vague veneration for God, but very few really reverence Him. And wherever there is a great ostentation in ceremonies, sincerity of heart is rare indeed." Now, a lot of what Calvin means here is in the eye of the beholder. Calvin, of course, was writing in a time when the Reformation was making a massive break with the Roman Catholic Church, and anti-Catholic sentiment and rhetoric ran high, much higher than we would be comfortable with today. It is certainly arguable that Calvin at times went too far in reacting against Catholic faith and practice, but even when he did, I would argue, he still had valid points beneath his sometimes excessive rhetoric. In this case, he has a point that has informed Presbyterian practice for almost 500 years now, and that is, there seems to be an inverse relationship between outward shows of piety and true inner faith. And this holds true for both individuals and communities. So we are a relatively high Presbyterian church with respect to liturgy, but our liturgy still shows a certain amount of restraint, informed by the need to keep our outward displays of piety from becoming the focal point of our faith. Liturgy is not the focus. God is. Now, this sense of restraint also informs our own individual faith and practice, or at least it should. One of the ways it plays out is that we tend to be relatively quiet about our faith, letting our actions speak louder than our words. I recently performed a memorial service for one of our oldest members, a man who, if I ever heard him speak more than 5 words in one conversation, I would be shocked. But he was also a man of deep faith and piety. I never spoke to him to find out, but I'll bet that part of his reticence to speak, and to speak about the faith, was informed by a lifetime in the Presbyterian Church. He was about my own parents' age, and like them, didn't speak much out loud about his faith. I think they were part of a generation that understood that true faith wasn't about shouting at people, but showing in quiet ways what the faith meant to them. I'm aware that this could just be a generational thing, but I don't really think so. It has just been part of our DNA as Presbyterians not to make grand shows of our faith. Let me leave you with one thought from Scripture, from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount that illustrates this. He says, "Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be praised by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret. and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Mature faith, you see, needs no recognition, no congratulations. Sincere faith does not need to show off and attract undue attention. It's not about ostentation. It's about calm, gentle, steady faith. And in the long run, that's far more attractive than the loud and the dramatic. And that's one of the things that makes a Presbyterian a Presbyterian. And now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.